We go to our next session, View from the Top, chief executives who've been reconnecting in person to China after the changing COVID years. I'm pleased to welcome to the stage a high-level CEO panel who'll unpack the business environment for their companies and their readout on where we stand. I'll briefly introduce each panellist and ask them to come up and address the audience and then take a seat, and then we'll have a discussion afterwards. Firstly, Miles Hurrell. Miles, if you can come to the stage, thank you. Miles was appointed CEO of Fonterra in 2018. He's had a long track record in the dairy industry with a strong focus on implementing the dairy cooperatives strategy to develop sustainable value. Floor to you.
Kia ora, thank you, Fran. Good morning, ina mana, ina reo, tēnā koutou katoa. Of course, this time last year, with borders still closed, I was sharing with the summit on how our business was continuing through COVID-19. But a lot, of course, has changed since then. I've since had the opportunity to travel to China on a number of occasions to engage with my team and understand how the market has evolved through that period. The key takeaway for me is the change in our product mix and growth of new categories and opportunities. The speed of innovation and consumers' demand for new products in China is phenomenal. Ingredients business, in particular protein business that goes into cheese and probiotics, has benefited significantly from the growth in the Chinese market and growing awareness of the benefits of protein. Industry and analysts expect this category to continue to grow at around 10% per annum over the next 5 years. In food service, our Anchor Food Professionals business provides high-quality, fit-for-purpose dairy products and solutions, including cheese, cream, and butters. Anchor Food Professionals reaches over 450 cities across China now, catering to over 20,000 of our customers, including their 400,000 restaurant chains. Over the past 4 years, it has evolved from distinct channels with a hero applications in pizza, tea macchiatos and pasta to a vast range of product offerings that are now tailored towards the local consumer palate. We provide solutions to dozens of restaurant chains in China, including Pizza Hut, KFC, McDonald's, Starbucks, Domino's, which cover the whole category of sandwich, pizza and coffee channels. And these customers hold over 25,000 stores across China, with roughly 4,000 new stores opening annually. To respond to the market needs for innovation, Fonterra has continued to grow our food service business by entering more Tier 3 to 5 cities, enhancing our products through investments in innovation, and strengthening our offerings by intertwining dairy into the local Chinese cuisine. We're also investing in an application centre, and it was a great delight for our chairman to host Prime Minister Hipkins and Minister O'Connor at our recent event in Shanghai. And our application centre is where we bring together a team of 50 Anchor Food Professional technical experts and chefs to help develop interactive spaces for customers and consumers in development seminars, demonstrations and virtual live seminars. We're pleased to open our 5th centre in Shenzhen later this year. The centre is focused on beverage application, and Shenzhen is where many of China's large and leading beverage consumers are located. China is a highly competitive beverage market with consumers constantly seeking the next best drink. Last year, over 1,400 new kinds of non-alcoholic beverages were launched in China by tea and beverage brands alone. Digitisation was another theme that shone through in my early visits, where almost everything now is done online. A lot of retailers do not have front of house, instead are simply replaced with a QR code where consumers scan, order and pay directly. Our upgraded application centres also provide live streaming functionality. Live streaming is a new e-commerce channel in China in which influencers live stream on platforms such as TikTok and sell products by explaining product features and interactions with buyers live and answering live questions. We've also seen an increased number of customer consumers focus on sustainability. For Fonterra, our pasture-based grass-fed system ensures we have one of the lowest carbon footprints globally for dairy. This means we're well placed to support China's overall emissions reductions targets and efforts for our customers to lower their own carbon footprints across their supply chains. Our grass-fed proposition in China remains relevant with customers and consumers today. We've also seen an increased demand for health-related products across China. In response, we're looking to develop new products to support immunity and cognition. For example, in the CIIE program in 2022, we launched new products in the Chinese market, including our new brand Nutiani to support protein products and probiotics. We also launched our Anchor grass-fed high-protein UHT milk. Consumers in China are becoming more health and nutrition conscious. This has been further developed by China's government's recommendation in 2022 for consumers to have a daily intake of between 300 and 500 grams of dairy products per day. We recognise the growing importance for dairy in China, driven by higher disposable incomes, changing dietary preferences, and growing awareness of nutritional benefits. Looking to the future, we remain optimistic about the outlook for China. Fonterra has been involved in the China market for over 50 years, with the New Zealand Dairy Board started selling ingredients to that market. Our business has expanded and matured over these years, and today it's one of our most important and strategic markets. About a third of our milk is sold across cities in China as either ingredients, food service or consumer products. China maintains its world's top position for dairy imports, and the country's consumption of dairy products continues to grow. The local Chinese dairy sectors continue to go from strength to strength, with local forecast consumption levels and imports to remain an important part of the mix for the foreseeable future. Looking at the economic environment in which we're operating, we expect the rise of disposable incomes will see more people spending on health products such as dairy, especially with increased awareness of the goodness of dairy following COVID-19. We also know that consumers are looking for more innovative products as they trade up in tastes. At Fonterra, we're well positioned to meet this demand, and our goal is to become the preferred innovative partner for domestic dairy consumers. China is an important source of innovation and an important part of the global dairy industry value chain. Innovation, sustainability, and efficiency will see us succeed over the following 50 years. Fonterra has a long history in China, and we're deeply committed to the market. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Miles. If you just have a seat. I'd now like to invite Carrie Hurihanganui to the stage. Carrie has been CEO of Auckland Airport since February 2022, and prior to this was Chief Operating Officer at Air New Zealand. Floor to you.
Well, tēnā koutou katoa, and it's great to be here today, the opportunity to talk about renewing the links with China as we see that market start to recover. You know, that time, February last year when I joined the airport, there were virtually no passengers in the terminal and very few planes. We were sitting at about 5% of pre-COVID international capacity. Trying the clicker, there we go. Aha, there we go. And as we stand here today though, from that 5% of pre-COVID capacity, 18 months later, we have recovered to 87% of pre-pandemic capacity internationally this month, and a summer season ahead of us that really is looking to revive tourism for New Zealand. Now, our goal over the pandemic was to keep New Zealand connected with airlines and on the radar of international airlines and help them when it came to relaunching services once borders reopened, including maintaining what we call boots on the ground, that we maintained a presence in China so that we could continue to build those relationships and stay connected. And I think if you look at the pace of the recovery coming out of China, that certainly has reaped its rewards, and I'll talk to that in a little bit more detail shortly. Now, we have been actually in a global race to attract airlines and routes to New Zealand, and I'm pleased to say overall now we have 23 airlines flying to 29 destinations, which is a significant jump up from the 12 airlines and 21 destinations in the toughest days of the pandemic. Now, for those in the aviation or tourism game, I think we'd agree that actually international travel has recovered much faster than we anticipated it would be. Those 472 scenarios that we all played through, all of them were wrong, to be fair, actually, and that recovery has come back quickly, and China has played a key role in that regard. Now, we have witnessed a remarkable recovery in air connectivity between the two countries since China's border reopened, and New Zealand being selected of one of the first 20 countries for Chinese tour groups to visit. It's given us a strong head start and positioned us very well as we've gone forward. What's a good summit without a slide and a couple of charts, right? Now, Auckland Airport now actually has 5 airlines operating 27 weekly flights to and from China's 4 cities, representing an 86% recovery in capacity. Now, I'll call that out a little bit. Actually, it's taken about 4 months for China's capacity to return to 86%. Most other international markets, it was a 10, 11, 12-month journey for that recovery to take place. Now, we have Air New Zealand and China Eastern operating daily into Shanghai. We have China Southern also flying daily into Guangzhou. And it was great to be in China a couple of weeks ago with the Prime Minister and Ministers Hannity and O'Connor, where China Southern did not only announce that it was moving from daily flights into Auckland to 10 times per week from November, as well as returning and renewing its services to Christchurch by introducing 3 flights a week from November. Air China has also restarted its link here to Auckland with Beijing 4 times a week, and Hainan Airlines was the 4th Chinese carrier to restart flights last month, returning the Shenzhen to Auckland route. With the return of airlines, China has climbed rapidly up the rank to be New Zealand's 3rd largest visitation market, behind Australia and the US, with April figures indicating a 38% recovery in bi-directional visitation between our 2 nations. Now, the mix of travellers arriving through the border is very encouraging and very important. The majority of inbound Chinese visitors are now visiting on holiday. So the April quarter ended had 44% coming on leisure or holiday, which overtook the number coming to see family and friends, which was 29%. Now, the reason that's important, it's a good indication of balanced traveller demand, that you're getting leisure holiday travel, you're getting business travel, and you're getting family and friends, that it's not just that revenge travel that you might have heard it referred to previously, that there's kind of that bow wave of people coming to connect with families. So a nice balanced market is incredibly important. There's also been a continuation in the shift from group travel to independent travel, a typical pattern we're used to seeing as inbound tourism markets mature, and a trend that was actually already underway prior to the pandemic. Group travel accounted for 9% of travel between March and May this year, although we do expect to see that number to increase up to pre-COVID levels once we do see group travel into Australia potentially coming back again. Now, with the recovery well in motion, we know that Chinese travellers are taking a really considered approach to travel choices, looking for destinations that they can escape to and relax. There's a growing trend actually away from major tourist attractions towards destinations offering nature-based tourism or outdoor activities such as hiking. Clearly, that positions New Zealand tourism in a very good space. We also know that Chinese travellers are increasingly researching online and watching social media recommendations from fellow Chinese travellers, making use of China's unique ecosystem of social media platform coupled with online travel services. Now, if we move from inbound travel to outbound travel, we've seen a 31% recovery of Kiwis heading to China in the first 4 months of this calendar year. Now, of that, business travel, again, has a nice mix. You've got 23%, which is for business, holiday at 28%, but a much bigger portion of visiting family and friends, sitting at 50%. Now, when you look, we've got a Chinese community of about 275,000 in New Zealand, 240,000, which is Chinese resident, and then about another 35,000 that are work visas or student visas as part of that. So you're always going to see a heavier proponent of visiting family and friends on the outbound side of that. From a cargo perspective, demand actually is holding up very well. It's up 6% in calendar year 22 compared to calendar year 2019. And this is thanks to airlines such as China Southern, China Eastern, and New Zealand that continued to operate throughout the pandemic with cargo-only flights and the occasional passenger flight. That's helped actually the recovery of air travel being much, much faster. When you have the planes, you have the pilots, and you have the ground handlers already doing cargo flights, to then book passengers and have cabin crew on board becomes a much easier startup than some airlines that actually paused and had to have a standing start to reconnect. So looking ahead, our summer peak season is when we typically see airlines really ramp up, making them important months to recover capacity and demand. By September, we're expecting Auckland to China airline capacity to recover to 93% with the 5 airlines that I mentioned earlier. So all in all, China has had a strong recovery to date with signs of stabilizing as we go forward. And I'll be popping back to China next week to continue to build the relationships that we have in the market there and think about the future. Kia ora, thank you very much.
Thank you, Carrie. Very optimistic story, and great to see you going back to China market quite so soon after the Prime Minister's trip, which was a good experience for us all. Our final speaker today is Dan Mathieson in this session. He was appointed CEO of Zespri in 2017. He's delivered a demand-led strategy, growing mature markets such as China and diversifying into new ones from his base now in Singapore. But it's a very great pleasure to have you here today with us.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Fran, and I can feel you glaring at me already to say time's up, so I will be brief. Sao Zhang Hao, kia ora koutou katoa. Great to be back at the summit again this year. I'm going to very briefly talk to you about what we are doing in Zespri and how we've evolved since we spoke at the summit last year. But firstly, how are we going in China? That's Carrie's slide, so that's not the ones. It was a good slide, and I actually wanted a bit more detail on that. So, okay, looks like we don't have the slides, but that's all right. So look, in China today, it's about, there they are, 25% of our total crop is sold in China. That equates to about 1 billion New Zealand dollars and growing every year. That's built on, of course, having a great quality kiwi fruit, but more importantly than that, it's been the investment in the brand that represents safe, high taste, high quality kiwi fruit that consumers have come to know and trust. We've invested heavily on building a footprint on the ground in China. We now have 5 offices there and 100 people on the ground, and that's been a really, really important evolution to move us from a marketing organisation being distant from China to now being an organisation embedded in China to allow us to continue to do great things there. Sorry, still not coming through. If whoever else is controlling the slides, if they can go to the next one. And so that investment is really, really important because we made a lot of mistakes in China, and I spoke about that last year. We were too distant from China. We didn't understand the market. We hired the wrong people. We partnered with the wrong people. We had the wrong route to market. So in the early years of China, although the growth was there, not a lot went right for us. And so we had a lot of learnings. And a lot of that has been about embedding ourselves in China, hiring expertise right across the ecosystem. Yes, sure, on the sales and marketing side, but also across our logistics, our supply chain, and of course, being able to connect and really get a close relationship with government agencies in China. And those things have allowed us to evolve from being a distant marketing organization in China to a fully fledged China business, doing business in China with strong partnerships. If I could go to the next slide, please. So as we look forward to the future in China, as it reconnects with the world, we're seeing incredibly strong demand, and that's buoyed by this refocus after the COVID pandemic on healthy, nutritious foods. But we're also repositioning how we sell our fruit in China. And the big evolution there is, of course, e-commerce. More and more of our products are being sold online. And in fact, boosted by the pandemic, now 40% of our kiwi fruit, and this is a perishable product, is now delivered directly to a consumer's home through e-commerce. And in the next 2 years, that number is likely to grow to 50 or 60%. So the majority of our fruit now being sold online. The forecasts for us in China are really strong. We're seeing double-digit growth well into the next 5 years. And that will mean going both wider in China as well as deeper. And when I say wider, I'm talking about moving into more cities. With our current marketing programs, our full distribution coverage, we're currently in 60 cities today. We're looking to expand that to 90 cities over the next 3 years. And that's what I mean by going wider. That will increase our exposure to 150 million more potential customers. But we also want to go deeper into China. And that's about getting more frequent purchase of our existing consumer base. And to give you an example, we've been in Taiwan a long time, and we now have 10 kiwi fruit sold to every man, woman, and child there. But in Shanghai, which is of an equivalent size in population, we only have 5. So that gives us real confidence that we've got a lot more opportunity for growth as we go deeper in that market and increase our penetration and consumption. In the slide here, you can see our red kiwi fruit, and we're continuing to innovate with new kiwi fruit offerings that are encouraging new consumers to come to the kiwi fruit category. The red has been a real hit. It's a very small volume, but it opens the door to all of our other kiwi fruit products. And so innovation on products that make sense for Chinese consumers is also really, really important. If I could go to the next slide, please. We're also trying to build new connections, and I talked about e-commerce. We are seeing within that e-commerce space this new trend of live streaming happening really, really strongly in the market. And I think on the Prime Minister's delegation, people were experiencing that firsthand. And through these live stream sessions, these live stream influencers are able to reach out to hundreds of millions of consumers and sell billions of dollars of product. One example is Li Chia-chi, who is known as the Lipstick King. This is a male influencer who is selling lipstick to female consumers, hundreds of millions of them, with sales revenue in the billions of dollars. But that, of course, is not the end of it. If I could go to the next slide, please. On the Prime Minister's delegation, we had our own TikTok superstar, and that was our very own Zespri chairman, Bruce Cameron, who was able to sell a much smaller number of kiwi fruit to Chinese consumers through the live streaming session. In fact, our chairman, Mr. Cameron, now has ambitions to be a TikTok superstar, but we need him to focus on growing kiwi fruit for the time being and back to his day job. So we've got a long history of innovation, innovating new products, new marketing, new brand opportunities to connect with consumers. But we're also innovating through the way we sell online and, of course, through the digital world. If I could just go to the final slide, please. So what does the future look like for us? Well, we expect China to remain incredibly strong on the reasons that I've mentioned today, but we're also going to be building a very strong brand through that digital interface so that we can connect with more consumers online. We're also making sure, though, that we're demonstrating our values in the area of sustainability. And this has been an increasingly important part of the work that we have been doing recently with our partners. And through the Prime Minister's delegation, we signed a commitment to make all of our packaging reusable, recyclable and compostable by 2025. And we'll be looking to transfer 60 million consumer packs this year from plastic to fibre packs. So we're very much focused in on that sustainability area, and we want to be a leader there. So new brands, new ways of selling, sustainability are all things that we're focused on, and we believe if we can do that, then certainly the best is yet to come in China. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And please come and join us here. Look, we heard just a while ago from Ambassador Wang Xiaolong that 400 million strong middle-income Chinese community is expected to double to 800 million by 2035, bringing about what he called a super-sized market open for the whole world. Must be feasible that we can continue to grow with China, mustn't it? View around the panel.
Yeah, well, from my perspective, 100% chance to grow, and we're already seeing that at a time when, you know, the economy is showing some signs of weakening compared to where it's been. You know, to 4.5–5%, still not a bad growth number when you look globally. So no, we see a huge opportunity in that market, but also evolving the consumer profile, the consumer taste profile, and the products we'll sell, and there will be different, I suspect, in the next 5 years.
Yeah, and likewise, Ambassador Wang talked about the west side of China being largely untouched, and that's very true for many New Zealand products. And certainly that's where we'll be expanding when we move from 60 cities to 90 cities. And we're seeing incredible wealth there, as well as a desire to have more healthy and nutritious food. So we think there's still plenty of demand ahead of us.
Carrie, can you share a little bit more information about why you're going back to China, and is it to tee up the market more, or to have a holiday and experience something of China?
Well, actually, I think you used the phrase this morning, it was a cracking pace on the PM's delegation. And so the opportunity, because I've been in role for 18 months and the borders were closed, it's really about establishing relationships with the 5 airlines in China, creating opportunities, and again, that market you're talking about, the ability to continue to grow the connection to New Zealand through multiple ports and cities, great opportunity to engage.
Yeah, I guess also in the belly of those planes, if we do start to open up to transporting more product into West China, there has to be opportunity for the airlines coming into here.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got 80% of New Zealand's freight arrives generally in the belly hold of a passenger aircraft rather than dedicated freighters. So again, that opportunity to continue to look to grow, particularly if you were heading out west, or even actually the existing markets to continue. We're at end of this year, 93% capacity. It'd be good to get back to what we were pre-COVID.
Just talking a little bit about sustainability, which was a bit of a focus also during the Prime Minister's visit. What part is that now playing in the New Zealand story as we market into China?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked the sustainability story in China for a number of years now, and it's evolved, I think, quite quickly. The Chinese consumers and our customers in particular have talked about wanting to be sustainable, wanting to do the right thing, and yet you go to the supermarket, you go to the market in China, and it's the least sustainable market you'd probably go to at first brush. But what you're seeing now is real action come into play, and you're seeing both industry and government wanting to work together to try and find solutions. We've just put out a white paper around the benefits of grass-fed. So we talk sustainability holistically, but in our context, what are the benefits of grass-fed? So it's no longer just a provenance story. It's no longer just free roaming cows in our situation. It's what are the actual benefits of it? And so you're seeing industry and government come together to commission things like white papers to give us better insights.
I think we also see a very strong directive starting to come from the top, from central government in China, which probably wasn't there as strongly a couple of years ago. Pollution worries are some of the top concerns for Chinese consumers, and so they're wanting to see clean, green environments going forward, and many of the middle upper consumers are wanting to buy products now from companies that can demonstrate their credentials in that space. It used to be, as Miles just said, it used to be a Europe discussion. It's now moved very quickly to Asia, and we're seeing that across China, but also across the rest of the Asia-Pacific region as well. The clean green image of New Zealand is still there and it's important, but you now need to have credentials underneath that. You need to be able to demonstrate as a brand, as a product, that you're actually doing something, not just talking about it, but actually driving change. And that's why we believe with the new sustainable packaging, we'll be able to show that commitment to sustainability initiatives through to the consumer.
And just one add, I guess, the fact that aviation is somewhat of a poster child for sustainability and carbon, and what we're seeing. And when we were up with the delegation, we had a forum with Neste and Airbus, for example, around sustainable aviation fuel. What are the pathways there? And when you look at the volume of production, they're moving fast on that. But when you look at the global demand on that, there's still a long way to go. And the other piece for aviation is around technology. I think China's incredibly well placed as you think about electric, hybrid, green hydrogen, etc. So again, continuing to build those partnerships is incredibly important for aviation as part of that, as well as what we do on the ground here in New Zealand as being a clean, green destination.
One of the things this morning, the Prime Minister, in a fairly well-layered presentation, obviously Ukraine, other issues there relating to China, and I notice now the phrasing has changed from too many eggs in the China basket to many eggs in many baskets from a New Zealand perspective. But how much does geopolitics actually figure in your boardrooms these days, and when it comes to making strategic decisions on your company's exposures?
Yeah, well, a lot. In our case, 95% of our product goes into international markets, and while we applaud the free trade program that's been implemented in the last couple of years in particular, in the dairy context, doesn't go far enough in some areas. So geopolitics, market risk does become a conversation at every board meeting, as it was 18 months ago with Russia. 12 months ago was Sri Lanka, 6 months ago was Sudan. I mean, the list goes on when you're dealing with international markets. So there's no reason why one market should dominate the conversation more than anything else.
If I could build on Miles' comments, absolutely, it features as a regular conversation, but what's interesting in the consumer behaviour coming out of China also is that safety is top of mind. And actually recently, Condé Nast just issued their Global Peace Index. It's been running since about 2008. And actually the top 10 countries has New Zealand as number 4, behind Iceland, Denmark, and Ireland. And so, as they think about destinations, you've got the geopolitical, but also where are people choosing to go when they've got that holiday and access. That also comes into the equation.
Yeah, it's a pretty volatile world out there right now, and that's only increased as we've gone through the last few years through the pandemic. It occupies a lot of our discussion, as Miles said, Carrie said, at the executive level, at the board table, and always it's about what is our plan B and C? What options do we have if something goes wrong, from moving to other markets, but also what preventative measures can we take to minimise the risk, because there is no business with zero risk. So how do you minimise risk within that country? And that's why in China, as an example, we've had to learn the hard way from moving to a very distant relationship to embedding ourselves in China, because if we can do that well, we understand the market better, we understand what's coming better, and therefore we've got the best chance of offsetting challenges that come our way.
Do you have a comment on that, Miles?
Yeah. As I said, I mean, the risk that we see across all our markets remains front and centre. So it becomes a conversation every board meeting.
I mean, when you think about China, to each of you, what is the biggest sort of opportunity that you might see that has just perhaps come about by coming back into market, being a bit more present? How's it sharpened your own sense of what that market means to you?
Yeah, I mean, I referred to the changing tastes in the market that we're seeing in China and the demand for protein. So it started out 50 years ago, as I referred, as a commodity market, getting milk powder into a growing Chinese economy. We're now, it leads the way in high valued proteins that go to feeding an elderly population. I mean, we're focused on health and wellness and elderly and adult nutrition, and that's a segment that continues to grow. And certainly not at the rates that we're seeing in some of the developed economies at this rate, but again, within a few years, I suspect it'll overtake it.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we talked before about the doubling of the middle class market by 2035. That's got a place, but also the size of the market means targeting it appropriately. You need a comprehensive e-commerce strategy because whether it be WeChat, Little Red Book, Julian, all of those are different, and actually targeting those markets and delivering to the needs of what's appealing to them as far as travel experiences and why they would choose New Zealand over any other market because it's highly competitive.
I think it's this combination of high quality, healthy foods with technology and being able to get your products to more and more consumers more efficiently through the e-commerce channels, through the live streaming that we're seeing. We see that as a real learning ground for our other markets as well, where we're not seeing the same penetration through e-commerce, but we know that that will come over time. And so there's a lot of learning to do into China, and we've got actually a global centre of excellence now based in China to help us take those learnings and start to think about how we apply them in other countries outside China as well.
We've got 3 questions from the floor, and 2 of them are identified, which is good. No, all 3 are. So from Louis Lee, dear Miles, what is Fonterra's most profitable market? What China ecosystems can evolve to make Kiwi enterprises more approachable, ROI and sustainability? That's a PhD thesis.
Yeah. A few questions in there. So in terms of profitability, I mean, we don't disclose down by individual market, and it does vary year upon year. So I'm not sort of trying to sit on the fence here, but year by year markets will evolve, and products will also evolve. So certain markets have higher profitability. In terms of the ecosystems, and I think the things like the trade mission that's just happened, I think is a really important point, and our chairman hosted the delegation at our application centre and can see what we can do. Clearly, in a competitive sense, I don't see us opening the doors to New Zealand dairy competitors, but beyond that, absolutely, we've been in these markets for a number of years and are prepared to support new companies that are wanting to start up that may not have understand how things work. So in a very similar situation to what NZTE do, we're open to supporting new startup businesses as well.
And a question for you, Dan, from Natasha Hamilton-Hart. What's Zespri's strategy to protect the brand given unlicensed grower issues?
Yeah, and we're working really closely on that with both the government agencies in New Zealand, of course, and in China. We've got a plan in place looking at really 3 key areas. One is around monitoring, so how is the fruit evolving over time through the unauthorised channels. What we're seeing there is that it started to slow. There have been policies put in place from central government to change land use. We're also seeing that some of the growing that was happening in some of the earlier orchards are now not sustainable, and so they're changing over to other crops. Nevertheless, there is now, we believe, close to 8,000 hectares of unauthorised G3 in China, so it is a concern for us and something that we're working on closely, as I mentioned, with government agencies in New Zealand and in China. We're also looking to really engage on this topic with both the Chinese kiwi fruit industry and also with our New Zealand kiwi fruit industry here, and we'll be looking to take some of our leaders from New Zealand to visit the unauthorised orchards over the coming months, which I think will be really good to increase the baseline level of understanding. And we're also really heartened by the fact that we have seen some changes from the Chinese government around IP protection. So in March last year, they implemented the seed law changes, which now allows us to take action when we see unauthorised sun gold kiwi fruit, not just on the vine, which was near impossible to trace back to. So we'll be looking at the legal avenues as well for the future to ensure that we're doing everything we can to deter continued spread of the unauthorised G3, as well as look for opportunities within that space as well over the coming months.
Thank you. One final question from Pat English to each of you. What do you see as the greatest challenges in the next 12 to 18 months in our economic relationship with China, and any solutions as well?
Yeah, well, I think China continues to move at pace, and it's keeping up with that change, I think is going to be important. I mean, I'm not concerned about the economic outlook. I think I'm quite bullish on that actually in the medium term. But it's how do we keep up with the changing dynamics and the changing demands of customers and consumers. It's expensive to put in capital into a market. It's expensive to launch new brands and new categories, and to see customers and consumers move so quickly. It's how do you keep ahead of that is something that I think we need to think about.
And if I come at it from a travel lens, I talked before about being at 93% capacity recovery. Well, we know certainly some of that dynamic and group travel could change as Australia and group travel comes back into the market. So I think it's understanding those dynamics as that comes into play. It has both the opportunity to see that get turbocharged, but it also has the opportunity to see that plateau as we go forward.
And I think as well as the economic uncertainty, and I do think we're going to have to work harder to give consumers the reason to buy our products at the prices that we're charging. I think also the big challenge that's been there for some time is around attracting great people. China is moving very quickly. There's some great brands there. That competition for top talent has never been stronger. And so finding ways to attract the best people to your company to work for you and with you is one of the big challenges that keeps us really consumed at the moment as well.
Look, I think you all face amazing challenges, but amazing opportunities. And, within the competitive environments, thank you so much for sharing so many insights and also into your strategies. Please join me in thanking our